Hello and welcome back to the Sunday special episode of the U Up podcast. I'm Jordana Abraham.
And I am Jared Freed. It is so good to be here with you, Jordana. We love a Sunday special because today is extra special. We have a very special guest. I've said the word special 7,000 times.
Yes, we have a very special guest. Our whole office is so excited. Everyone is such huge fans of you. I personally have listened to so many of your podcast episodes, and I'm halfway through your new book, and I'm so excited to talk about it. We have podcaster, the host of On Purpose, a best-selling author of Think Like a Monk, and his new book, 8 Rules of Love, is coming out now. Please welcome Jay Shetty.
Thank you so much for having me. That's such a sweet intro. I appreciate it. And I loved saying hello to everyone in your offices. You have a beautiful studio, beautiful energy. Thank you for having me here. I'm really grateful, honestly.
Of course. They were so excited. Everyone here was like, we need to get all of the content. I'm like, don't harass the person when I walk in the door. I'm sure he seems like a very nice guy from all the content of yours that I've consumed that I think that you're going to be amenable.
I'm happy to.
We're so excited to have you here. So I've in the process of reading 8 Rules of Love. I'm a little over halfway through. So I'm only on, you have 8 rules. I'm on rule like 6.
Okay.
So
yeah.
So forgive me if I miss out on any of the last 2 rules, but I love what you do because you really take the reader through sort of the meta experience of finding love and debunking a lot of myths around, the ways to find love and the ways that people think that it's supposed to be something that it's not. But I guess for people who are less familiar with you, can you give us a little bit of background? I know you used to be a monk, which is, very different from a lot of our listeners. So can you just take us through your journey and how you became this, I don't know, what do you call yourself? Like a guru of sorts?
No,
I guess everyone's a guru according to the book.
I wouldn't, exactly. No, I consider myself to just hopefully be everyone's friend who reads a lot and tries to learn a lot and try and helps them navigate tough times in their life. My official title is author or, podcaster, but really I feel like I wish everyone could be defined by their purpose and not be defined by a title, because even both of you, I'm sure you imagine you're called podcasters, but there's so much more to who you are. And so I try and define myself as someone who tries to help people find their purpose. That's what I've signed up for. That's who I am. But I'll tell the story if you want me to.
Oh, sorry to interrupt. How old are you?
I'm 35.
You're 35.
Yeah.
And how do you become a monk?
Yes,
I know you from my TikTok scroll.
Yeah.
You come up a lot.
Yes.
And you have a guest list that is pretty unbelievable on your podcast. So how do you go? To me, a monk is
off the grid.
I don't think
So I'm no
Selena
longer...
Gomez and the monk don't come across in the Venn diagram of life.
Yes.
How do you go from monk to Hollywood?
Yeah. So
that's kind of the wonder I have.
I'm no longer a monk, but I'll go backwards. So I was born and raised in London.
Okay.
I grew up like an average kid in London, went to school, went to university in London. And I was fascinated by the same things everyone else is. I was dating, I was having fun, I was having a great time. And then when I was 18, I used to go and hear entrepreneurs, celebrities, athletes speak at university. This is before podcasts and YouTube. And so you actually had to go meet
Where'd
people.
you go to school?
I went to school, went to a place, you mean for college, like university?
Yeah.
I went to a place called Cass Business School in London.
Okay.
And so when I was studying there, one of my friends said to me, hey, let's go learn from this monk who's giving a talk. And I was just like, why would we go learn from a monk? I learned
So this is one of the free college, we got a guy.
Totally,
Okay.
Totally, yeah. And my friends were getting into meditation at the time and mindfulness very early. And I was a bit skeptical and cynical and didn't
That's
care.
the point where I'm like, I'll see ya. You're going to do some meditating?
Jared was at the frat party.
Yeah.
Well, so was I. And so I said to my friends, this is what I said. I said, I'll only go to see the monk if we go to a bar afterwards. Those were my exact words. And my friends were very persuasive. They said, sure, we will. So I went to this event and I went there kind of like what you're saying. I went there expecting nothing. I was like, all right, we just got to pass the time. We'll get out of here. And I was blown away. I heard someone speak in a way that I'd never heard before. And he was talking about why using your skills and gifts in the service of others to improve other people's lives is the goal of life. And when I heard that at 18, I was like, wow, that's interesting. No one's ever said that before. And I realized now looking back, I'd met people at 18 who were beautiful and attractive and rich and famous and successful by going to these events. But I don't think I'd met anyone who was truly happy. And he had that. Like when I saw him, I was like, this guy's content. Like he has happiness.
Right.
I want that. And so that's what led me to go and live as a monk for 3 years when I graduated, because I was so fascinated by his life.
Like, is there an internship program? Like, how do you get into monk?
Yeah, so
that's what I wonder. Because it's so. I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's so removed.
Yeah, totally.
From anything I like to think, like, if you're listening, you're probably, Jordana said at the beginning, I don't think we got a lot of monks. So it is almost not relatable to me.
It isn't at all.
To graduate from college, I'm like, I was like graduating from college, I'm going to move to New York City.
Yeah.
Where do you go? Where do you start? And had you kept in contact with this person that spoke at your school?
Yeah, so I went every summer vacation and Christmas vacation almost as an internship, exactly like you said, to spend time in the monastery. And I would spend the other half of it interning at financial companies, which is what I thought I'd do after college. And so I'm spending my summers doing monk training and then business training. And every time I'd come back from the monastery, I'd feel amazing and I'd be so grateful I had that experience. Every time I'd come back from steakhouses, suits and bars and offices, I'd feel like I don't want to do that with my 20s. I don't want to do that in my life. So I never felt fulfilled coming back from a 3-month internship at a corporate company. But I felt fulfilled and fueled by serving food to the homeless in India or helping kids in India, which is what we do.
And if I can combine the two, monk with business, I will be a billionaire.
It seems like actually that's kind of like exactly what you've managed to do is combine like the world of capitalism and monkhood and bring them together in a way that creates something much more accessible to, you're bringing the teachings of the monks to the masses.
Yeah, what I realized when I was living as a monk, and it's the same thing you said, Jared. It's like, I grew up in London. I just wanted to drink, have sex, and have fun, right? Like as a teenager,
I'd like to make money as well.
What else do you want to do?
Okay.
Well, as a teenager, you're not really thinking about making money. It's not, and I mean, I started working when I was 14 years old. So I was delivering newspapers at 14. I then worked at our equivalent of Walmart at 16. And then worked at our equivalent of Forever 21 at 18. Like I've been working for a long time. But what I found when I lived as a monk was I was learning all these amazing ideas, but I was like, my friends from London are never going to come and live as monks. Like that's never going to happen. Right. But somehow they need to hear about these ideas because they're amazing and they're changing my life. And I'm just an average guy from London. If it can help my life, it can help all my friends' lives. And so when I left the monastery, that became a big priority for me is how do I share this with anyone in the world? And okay, today it's incredible where it's reached, but I've been doing this since 5 people showed up or no one showed up. When I'd be in it's kind of what you're saying, when I was in a room at college saying, hey, I'm giving a talk this week on spirituality and philosophy, and everyone going, yeah, we don't need that. Like, who needs that? And so I've spent years doing this before it ever went online and before it ever blew up, just trying to share these insights and pieces of advice with anyone who would listen.
So what made you leave like the monastery life?
Yeah, I thought I was going to do it for the rest of my life and I wanted to. And what made me leave was after 3 years of being there, I realized I was far more independent and rebellious than what you need to become a monk.
Right.
Monk life is highly disciplined. It's highly focused and it needs that dedication to doing it in the way it's done. I wanted to talk about wisdom, but with movies and with pop culture references. And I wanted to teach wisdom in a way that anyone could have it. You don't do that as a monk. I didn't even know who the Prime Minister of England was. I didn't know who won the World Cup. Like I was so off the grid. I didn't have a phone. I didn't have any of these concepts. And so I just felt like, well, I'll never be able to share this if I don't understand, if I'm not reconnected. And so I sat down, I spoke to the monks and I said, I think it's time for me to leave. And they said to me at that point, they said, yeah, we feel that if you leave, you'll be able to share this with more people. And so it was a breakup.
They were kind of like, yeah, maybe you should
maybe you should leave. Yeah, they were like, it's not you, it's me. Like it was one of those awkward breakups. But it was like a breakup. Like it felt like a divorce when I moved back. Like I moved back into my parents' house, age 26, with $25,000 worth of debt, and then got rejected by 40 companies after that I applied for to get a job because, surprise, surprise, no one wants a former monk in their company. They're like, what are your transferable skills? Sitting silent and being still? Like no one wants that.
What is a day we'll get out of monk time in a second. What's a day like at the monastery?
Okay.
Like what do you wake up?
Great question.
Like,
these are great, by the way, Jared, these are great questions. Like I think I'm really glad that we're getting into it because Yeah.
Do people ask you this all the time? I don't know if I'm repeating.
No.
I'm more interested. Like, I mean, like you just show up. You don't need to show a resume. They're like, come on in. We got a spot for you.
No, there's a process. So that's what I'm saying. When I was going there in the summer and Christmas vacations, they want you to experience it in 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
It's like a program.
Totally. Well, it's not like an official written out contractual program, but because I knew the head monk who had met at this event, he was kind of laying it out for me. So he'd be like, come spend 2 weeks this time.
Okay. What do you say to your parents?
Well, what was I saying to my parents?
What do you say?
Yeah.
Like, hey, this guy
I started,
who talks about spirituality wants me to come live with him?
I started not listening to my parents at 14, so I didn't really feel a lot of pressure, but I just said to them, I said, this is what I want to do with my life. I want to go and experience what this feels like. And my thing was, my parents just were like, get good grades, right? That was their thing. So I'm like, if I can get good grades and I can go and do this, then I'm winning. And so I use that as my get out of jail free card, I guess. And so you wake up at 4 a.m., you have a cold shower every night.
Hold on, but where are you?
I was 2 hours outside of Mumbai in India.
Okay.
And so we're in this monastery, which is in a place called Palghar, Palghar. It's a city in India. And we're 2 hours outside of Mumbai, to give some context. And you're in a monastery. A monastery is, I mean, it's just a big open space with lots of rooms where you share communal spaces. So you don't have your own bedroom. You sleep in a room on the floor. You wake
no
up
sheets, no comfort.
You have like a tiny little yoga mat with a little mosquito net over you, because you sleep in this little mosquito tent almost, because there's so many mosquitoes at night that will eat you alive.
Is it sometimes more comfortable? You know, when you get a massage and you're like, I could sleep here.
Yeah.
You ever have that thought? You know what I mean?
On
You
the
ever get a
floor?
massage?
You get a massage on the floor?
No, you get like, you're on the massage table, and you know how sometimes you go, this isn't like, you're like, I feel more comfortable now than I have ever felt in bed. Is there an element of, the
I don't think there's anyone massage. Do you get massages
No,
at the
you don't.
monastery?
No, but
Okay.
sleeping on the floor is not as uncomfortable as it's made out to be.
Right,
for
that's
sure.
right. With the yoga mat.
The idea of being a monk, a big part of it, right, is like a detachment from like earthly and worldly things, and so living simply and basically a detachment from almost everything.
Yeah,
right?
the goal.
So no Wi-Fi.
No Wi-Fi and no wife. I thought you were going to say wife. Yeah, no Wi-Fi or no wife. And yes, it's taking away any external distraction so you can truly go inward. So for example, you wake up at 4 a.m., you're having cold showers, you sleep on the floor, all of your possessions.
Cold showers, there's no hot button. There's no or do you avoid it?
No, the shower you're just told not to. Like
you're told not to.
Yeah, it's a normal shower.
It's an honor system.
Yeah,
okay, well that's what I'm wondering. Like I don't know if it's just one.
You sneak a hot shower in when you've had a really bad morning.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, if it was there for me to choose, I'd like do a little on the right side.
It was really funny. We'd have and then
is the head monk looking?
He can't. And then you're spending a lot of the day in meditation. All of your possessions fit inside a gym locker. So that's all you have to put everything in. You get 2 sets of clothes. You wear one, you wash one. So if you don't wash it, everyone knows because they can smell you. And so that has to be done. There's a snorer's room and a non-snorer's room. That's the amount of segregation for sleep.
That's the thing that they're on top of?
Yeah. Just making sure you get some good sleep.
I think, right?
You're right. It is big. But I'd be like, okay, well, what about people who like, different foods,
no, you don't get different menus. And the most fascinating thing is there's no mirrors. So you really lose the self of like how you look.
That's how you know
identity.
it's all men.
Right.
Yeah.
You ever go into a bachelor's like apartment? There's no floor length mirror.
No mirrors.
That's how I always know.
And so there's no mirrors and you forget how you look. And the whole point is that if you forget your external, you can actually go internal.
And is everyone...
Hopefully that helps.
No,
I'm
celibacy?
interested.
Yes, you're celibate.
So you're celibate for 3 years.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
And that was probably the hardest part. Like I think the rest of it was all doable with like some energy and willpower. And then, saying, hey, I'm not going to talk to a woman. I'm not going to flirt with someone. I'm not going to date. I'm not going to...
But are you coming across women?
Not really, apart from when you're out on the streets, when you're doing service work or charity work and things like that. Not really. But it's all in the mind.
Is there like a recess? Like what do we do for fun? Like at the monastery. Is there like board games? Like
no,
nothing.
None of that.
How do you fill the day?
So you start off the day at 4 a.m. You're meditating for a ton of time. So you're meditating for minimum 4, maximum 8 hours a day. So that's like half. That's most people's work day already gone. And then you're spending the rest of the day out serving people. So you're helping build sustainable villages. You're teaching in schools. You're feeding the homeless. Like you're out there doing work. And so I feel like
how do you get out there? I'm sorry to interrupt.
Please.
I have many questions.
I love it, man. Don't worry. Don't
you
apologize.
Just go up to someone and you go, "Hey, you need a hand here?"
No, so we were building like official food distribution programs. So we would have a program where we'd go into schools and give people their midday meals. We'd go to, we were crafting a village from scratch that people could come and visit. So they were official projects almost that the monks were involved in. And obviously they're just volunteering and supporting.
Okay.
So it's not a job.
Was there any part of like the monk life that you disagreed with? I know you left, but while you still had like a great relationship with them, was there a part of it that you were like, I appreciate all these lessons. I got a lot from this, but there's some parts that I'm like, I don't necessarily think it makes the most sense.
Yeah, I don't think I disagree with any of it. I think it's sacred in the way that it should be. I just felt that I knew I wasn't a monk after 3 years. And I was okay with that. I was okay with the idea that I've learned a lot of amazing things that have changed my life and will change the lives of others. But I don't need to live this way to think this way. And that was a really important nuance for me, where it's like, I don't need to live like this anymore in order to think like this. And I can take these teachings of meditation and mindfulness and discipline and apply them to my life back at home.
Right. I like that because I feel like, it's also like the idea of detachment from everything is such a cool, interesting theory. Like, but in practice, part of it is in practice, it's kind of like, is it meaningful to live a life without attachments to anything? Like, isn't part of like the excitement of life getting really excited about a date, or or even getting really sad about a breakup? Like part of me likes the idea of being I've been married now for and in a relationship for a long time. So part of me likes the idea of like long-term, stable, steady. Nothing is like super devastating, but also there's like nothing is like the most exciting thing you've ever heard. Yeah. So I think that there's an interesting thing to dissect about that, of like the monk life is like, you're never getting too excited or too upset about anything, which is nice in theory, but it also kind of feels like, isn't that sort of the meaning of life?
Yeah, well, I think that what's happened in like normal society is that we've become so obsessed, enamored, and addicted to things that we almost need a detox and a detachment to come back into the middle.
Right.
So if we could start in the middle, it would be perfect. But none of us start in the middle. We start with an infatuation, an addiction, a complete obsession with things that aren't great for us.
Right.
And so it's almost like you need to be complete. It's almost like when people say, hey, I didn't look at my phone for 7 days, or I took a break from my phone for a day.
Yeah.
And it's like you need that extreme to balance it out. Rather than if you were like, I'm just going to have a healthy relationship with my phone every day and not look at it, that's unlikely to happen immediately. It requires some sort of detachment. Same with, if you're trying a new diet, or if you're trying to cut a particular food out, you sometimes need to go to the other extreme to get back into the middle. It's hard to just find the middle, if that makes sense.
Like an elimination diet, for like your mind.
Yeah, it's harder to find the right balance without detaching yourself from something that you're completely fascinated by.
Yes.
So you get back to London.
Yes.
You move in with your parents, as you said.
Yeah.
And now the plan is, I want to bring an edible form of monkism to the masses. Is that the plan?
I wouldn't even say it was to the masses. I would just be like, I just want to share this with people who want to listen. And I had a very small vision because I didn't really ever believe or imagine that millions or billions of people would ever to be a part of this. Like, I never really had that conception. It wasn't like I sat there and was like, oh yeah, one day. I never believed that. And so, and actually my first thing was, okay, I just need to survive and pay my bills.
Yeah, what's the initial
So I literally started applying to companies that I would have gone to after college instead of being a monk. And that's what I was saying, like 40 companies rejected me before interview. So I wouldn't even get to that stage because my resume said monk for the last 3 years and no one wanted to even take me in. So I was stressed that I was like, I can't live with my parents for long. They don't have a lot of money. I can't rely on them. I'm going to have to take care of myself, but I'm not getting a job. I finally landed a job at a company called Accenture, which I'm so grateful to because it was so important for me to just be able to move out of my parents' house and take care of myself.
Yeah.
And so I get a graduate job at 26 when everyone's 21 at this job. So now I'm feeling behind because all my parents, and not my parents actually, I'll give them credit, but my extended family and my community before I became a monk were like, you've been brainwashed, you're joining a cult, you're wasting your life, you're never going to get married, you're never going to make money again. There was all these like really intense things. And when I came back, he was like, we told you so. We knew you wouldn't make it. Look, 40 companies rejected you. Look, you're in debt. Look at all your other friends. They're paying rent. They got a mortgage. They're getting married, whatever it was.
And especially, this time in the world, you're 35. At that age, I'm 37. You're told, go to college, get it done. You know, it
Goes
was
a straight path.
It was a different time.
It was a different time than now. Even to now, this idea that like it was like go to college and you'll be okay. Like if you had a friend that didn't go to college, it was like the talk of the town.
Yes.
Like it was like, oh my God, what are they gonna do? Because then they, you know,
Thanks for that context. Yeah.
Right, you get repeated. That whole thing at that time was, you know, so and so number of people who go to college are millionaires. You know, they would give you that stat in high school. So it was like this whole thing of like, there's no option here.
Yeah. And now they do it for entrepreneurs. Like now it's swung the other extreme where we're like, well, be an entrepreneur. Everyone has to be an entrepreneur.
Right.
And it's
Everyone's
like
a creator.
Everyone's a creator. And it's like, no, like just figure out who you are. Like, you know, like being an employee or an entrepreneur doesn't make you any better or worse. It's about being who you are. So I think that was a big part of it. And then I finally got this job. And what I started to do was I started to teach meditation and mindfulness at work because my company was prioritizing burnout. They were prioritizing mental health. And so they were really putting an effort on that. And my interesting fact about myself at work was I used to be a monk and I can teach meditation.
Great fun fact.
Right. Yeah, that was my fun fact.
I don't think you were gonna be like, my favorite soda is Dr. Pepper. Like,
Exactly. So they had this. Yeah, they asked you all those questions on your joining day, and mine was my fun fact was I used to be a monk and I teach meditation, and so I started teaching meditation inside the company. And literally 2 people would show up, 3 people would show up, 5 people would show up, 10 people would show up. I'd do it every week. It would be like in a lunchtime slot. And then finally, one of my managing directors, one of the executives heard about what I was doing. And she said, I'm going to put you on stage at the company summer event and at the annual event. And I was like, that's awesome. And so in 2014, when I worked at this company, we had an event at Twickenham Rugby Stadium. And 1,000 of my colleagues were in the audience. They didn't have a clue who I was.
And Accenture's
a corporate consulting firm.
And it's a huge company.
They have like 1 million employees around the world. Like it's a big organization.
Yeah.
And then I went on stage in between the CEO and Will Greenwood, who won the Rugby World Cup with England. And I'm thinking,
Will Greenwood? No.
Yeah, exactly. You have no idea who he is. You have no idea who he is. I'm like talking about rugby. Everyone's like, what's rugby?
Willie Greenwood.
Yeah. And it's just like, I'm going on stage thinking, well, no one's going to care. No one really knows who I am. I'm just someone who works at the company who teaches meditation. And it was just a really affirming moment because my director came back to me afterwards and she said, I've never seen a group of millennials in a room be so focused on meditation or mindfulness or anything like that ever before. And for me, I was like, wow, that's amazing. Like people really care about this.
Right.
So it was almost like a moment for me where I was like,
I can do this.
I can do this. Like this is real. Like people care. This can help people. And I think that's where it came from.
She's like the Hollywood agent. You got the goods, kid. I think you got what it takes.
Yeah, that's what it was. That's how I felt.
Yeah.
That's how I felt.
I think it's such an interesting, juxtaposition of again, the two worlds that seem so polar opposite that you bring together so well and I think make so accessible to people. But I wanted to talk about the book and kind of shooting off of what we were just saying, like the idea of success in the book. And I know you mentioned in the book that, how long have you been married?
I've been married for 7 and with my wife for 10.
10 years. Wow. So
hold on. Sorry to get. When did you meet? How did you meet her at Accenture?
So I met my wife before I became a monk. And so I tell that full story on the first episode.
She waited for you.
My podcast ever. Kind of, maybe. I was the one who, when I first saw her, I was like, all right, pull it together. You're going to become a monk. I was 6 months away from becoming a monk. Long story short, I met my wife's mom at the temple in my area, who said to me, hey, I have a daughter who'd love to get involved in spirituality.
What's this mom doing?
She was
trying to ruin these monks.
No, I wasn't.
I got a daughter for you.
I was at college.
Oh, okay.
I was at college.
She showed up to the monastery.
No.
She's like, hey, boys.
It's like the Jerry Maguire. Who's coming with me?
Right.
I was at college. I wasn't a monk. And I was assisting serving at my local temple.
Right.
And I saw my wife for the first time, thought she was absolutely beautiful. And I was like, all right, well, I was talking myself out of it because everything in my normal brain was like, just ask her out. And I was like, no, you're becoming a monk in 6 months. Like, stop it. And so I
could have ruined this whole empire.
Could have. I introduced her to my sister at the time. And so her and my sister became really good friends. I went off, and then when I came back, she was at my house all the time with my sister. They became great friends. And my sister was our was our connector and middle person,
That's
or
nice.
my wing person.
So she already fit right into the family.
Yeah.
But you say that you clearly, you said you met her before you were successful. And in the book, you talk about how it was a good thing that you met her before you were successful because she didn't really care once you became
She still
successful.
doesn't care. She still doesn't care. She's like still just about, she just finished my first book. It's been 3 years.
Okay.
And she just started listening to my podcast last week and she started sending me messages going, I really like this episode.
So funny. It really keeps your ego in check.
It's brilliant.
Yes.
I mean, being married to someone like that is just unbelievable because I think if I was married to someone else who loved me for what I'd achieved, I would have fallen into that trap as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel really lucky that I'm married to someone who loves me for who I am and not what I achieve. And it's the biggest blessing because she really couldn't care less. She doesn't know about any stats or numbers. We had a team event. My team laughs about this all the time. We had a team event at my home last year where everyone was giving updates about what we'd achieved and what they'd done and all this kind of stuff. And my wife was sitting there and everyone laughs at this. She was like, wow, that's so cool. Like she was completely shocked and surprised because she had no idea. And it was just, that's who she is. She's adorable.
It kind of works into what you're, the theme of what you talk about as far as like she's not interested in the thing as much as the person.
Right.
This is,
well, I thought it was an interesting parallel too, because I mean, Jared, we talk about this a lot where Jared's a comedian and he's dating. And I think that it's probably an interesting thing to be dating someone where it's like, what is the level of interest in what you do that you want someone that you're dating to be, because you want someone to respect what you do, right? You don't want them to be like, so you wouldn't want her to see your podcast and be like, oh, that seems like a joke. You would want her to respect what you do, but also not the idea that she's not like a fangirl.
She's not at
of
all.
your show.
Yeah,
there's a nice in between. This reminds me of a story. I had a woman that DM'd me. She was like, well, here's reasons you should date me. It was like, she basically wrote reasons you should date me.
Wow.
And the first reason was, I'm much funnier than you.
Wow.
And just was like,
how did that feel?
And I go, but then she didn't stop. She kept going. Not like just much funnier. Funnier than you'll ever be. You're not funny at all.
Did you agree?
No, this isn't a funny opening. This opening joke sucks. Okay, you haven't wowed me.
You were giving criticism back to her.
Well, I didn't even. I deleted it because I was like, but it was such like the wrong entry point to a hello.
Right.
But
it's like, what is the ideal level of interest that you want your partner to have in what you do? And I know you have the chapter I just finished, I think it was rule 5 or 6, where you're talking about, how you want to be making space for each person to find their purpose. And sometimes one person has to sacrifice for the other person. And I think I thought of you in that chapter too, because you do shows every night and some women might be like, oh, I want him to be spending time with me. I don't want him to be going out and doing stand-up.
Then don't date a stand-up, right? Like, as in, like, there's also a reality around, like, if someone met you and they can see what your life is like, that's what you're signing up for too.
Right.
Right? I think there's a reality check there where if someone's building their career as a stand-up comedian and that's what they do and they're growing and things are going well for them, like it is for both of you, it's like, that's part of what's going to come, right? They're not just suddenly going to change. But I think what you were referring to earlier, which is interesting to me, is this idea that, how much you want the person you're with to like understand and fully like be involved in what you're doing or really get it. Yeah. So I believe that you want your partner to respect what you value, but not value what you value. They can't. It's just not possible. Like if I wanted my wife to love what I do as much as I love it, that's just really not realistic. And it's the same way as her saying my wife's love is food and health. She's a nutritionist, a dietitian, a vegan chef and recipe developer. When she eats a meal, like she knows every flavor profile and everything. I have no clue. I'm a basic guy who just eats basic food, right? But so I can't value what she values, but I can respect her art form. And so I think someone respecting your art form is different to someone fangirling. And I think you don't want to be married or in a relationship with a fan, just someone who respects you for what you do. And so I feel that my wife respects what I do. She admires it. She appreciates it. At the same time, she's the first person to call me out. So if I practice something to her, last year I was doing something which was really high pressure and high stress. And I practiced for her the day before. I was doing my script and I was sharing it with her. And she goes, Jay, that's really not good. like that could be so much better.
Right.
And all my ego, like my male ego was like, do you know who I am? Like, I didn't say that, but inside I was like, do you know who I am? Like, and I realized
I have a pretty big podcast.
And that's the beauty of being married to someone who can humble you and ultimately that they just want you to be better. That's why they're saying it.
Right.
That they're saying it for you. They're not saying it for them. Like, she doesn't get anything out of this. And I think that's what I love. That, and then I rewrote the whole script. But I love being humbled in a relationship. I think there's this great story of Robert Downey Jr. talked about it, who I admire so much. I think he's awesome. He was being interviewed at the Cambridge Union.
I've never met him.
In England. I've never met him either. And have you actually met him? No. And they asked him, they were like, what does it feel like to be Iron Man? And he said, well, when I come home, my wife and kids are not like, oh my God, it's Iron Man. He was just like, they're just like, yeah, can you take the cat poop out? Like, take the trash out. Like, the reality of home is so great. Yeah,
you don't want to be like worshipped at home. But on the other hand of it, sometimes it's kind of, and you talk about, I forgot what you call them, like the sort of like superficial attributes that sometimes people are attracted to, whether it's like status or money or whatever those things are. Sometimes those are somewhat part of people's identity, and they feel like they're, let's say you're very, very beautiful and you're kind of like the person you're dating, isn't that impressed by that. You're kind of like, well, I thought I was like bringing this to the table.
Yeah.
So it's like, are you, the thing, it's interesting to me. It's like when the thing that you value yourself on, you assume everyone else is valuing you on too, but they're not necessarily doing that. So in some ways it's like a compliment, but in other ways you're kind of like, well, then what are you here for?
Yeah. And that's why I think like they can respect that. But if they like more and more deeper parts of you, that's awesome. Like, I grew up always having my eyes pointed out, like, oh, you have green eyes, right? Like, that was a big thing for me. And then I married someone who has green eyes. And so it makes no difference to her that I have green eyes. Like, that's irrelevant to our relationship.
Right.
And so I think someone who loves you can actually make you value more deeper parts of yourself that you don't even value yourself. Like, someone who loves you makes you fall more in love with all of yourself because they see parts of you that you don't see yourself. So to me, that's kind of like the heart of a good relationship.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that too. What gets you like in the love game? Do you know what I mean? Like right now you go with 8 rules of love.
Yeah.
And you're going to have people coming to you, like we hear from people that, every day we get emails that are like, what do I do here? What do I do there? They're very specific.
Yeah.
How do you talk to someone who's 25 and not in the monastery and having an issue texting with someone?
Yeah.
Totally. How do you speak to that?
Yeah, well, the book does. I mean, the book's definitely not written from my first book is called Think Like a Monk. And so if anyone wants to understand that part of my life, it's in that book. Mm-hmm. In this stage of my life, I wrote this book because I've been fascinated by love my whole life. I finally have a healthy relationship, which is beautiful to have. And I'm learning from it. I'm growing. Of course, we make mistakes and we're not perfect. But this was what I felt like writing about. So if someone's 25 and struggling to text, I actually don't think saying, here's how to text back is what actually helps. That's such a small, short-term figuring out. Like what really helps is figuring out, well, what's your personality? What's your values? What's your goals? Because what ends up happening is you could send the perfect text, which is not who you are, end up in the perfect relationship, which isn't the one you want, just because you nailed how to get someone. And so I don't think getting someone is a sign of being in a good relationship. And so the idea of like, send this text because that's what's going to get them excited and this, if that's the relationship you want, that's great.
Right.
But I don't think that's the relationship people are looking for. So I have a section in the book which says you attract what you use to impress. So if you use a part of yourself to impress someone, you're going to attract that. I had a client who was like, oh, this new girl that I'm dating, she's only into me for the money I have. And like, he's like dripping in Gucci, like carrying a Gucci bag. And I'm like, well, bro, that's the picture on your Tinder profile. Like, what are you expecting? Like, you're putting that out into the world.
Yeah, I totally agree. We do dating app makeovers. And I always say that about like, because we get a lot of women who write in and they're like, I'm just getting messages from guys who are trying to hook up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, sometimes it's about the pictures that you're putting forward. If your pictures are sort of mostly displaying your body or your sexuality or your looks, no, there's anything wrong with that. But the person who's attracted to that is probably going to be the person who's most primarily first thing they're interested in that is going to be the one responding to those prompts, and those might be like you might be getting a different bias level of people who are interested
and that's
in
not
that.
fair. Like I wish it wasn't that way, right? But it is how people think, and
But in a more fair way, it's also the loudest person that comes at
Totally.
you. It's the person that keeps coming at you. Is like, the person that's into, the looks and sees the, cleavage out. That's the one that's like screaming and knocking at the door, as opposed to the person that might not do that. Or the person that it might, you have a quieter, knock from the person being like, I like that prompt you wrote.
Yeah. And that's what I mean, right? It's all about human psychology, and we have to decide, do we want attention and validation, or do we want a relationship? Those are two different things, and neither are good or bad. If someone wants attention and validation, go for it. I have no issue with that. But if you're saying you want a relationship, don't settle for attention and validation.
And I like that about what what you value in yourself is the thing that you're going to get valued for.
Yeah.
Which I thought it was so interesting that you were like glad that you met your wife before you became successful, because I think that there's a lot of men who listen to the show, or just in general, I feel like they need to get to a certain level of success before they can meet someone, or before they can devote time to meeting someone.
I see that challenge, and I empathize with anyone who feels that way. Like I think today there are a lot of men who feel inadequate or struggling with the idea because they feel intimidated, or they feel they need to be strong and they need to have all of this together. At the same time, we need to be in touch with our emotions. It's like, it's a lot of demands. A lot of men feel that way. And I fully empathize with that. I would just say that it doesn't matter when you meet someone if it's the person that you want to build a relationship with. Like when I met my wife, I didn't have any money. I didn't have a job. I used to tutor on the side college students to pay for our dates. And that's the life that my wife signed up for when we first met. And so I respect her for that, because she didn't have to do that. She chose to do that. And so now when people are like, oh, your wife's so lucky to be with you, I'm like, well, actually, it's the other way around. I'm lucky to be with her because, she had no idea where this was going, and she committed to that person. And that's the kind of person I wanted in my life.
Right.
That's my point. Like, I'm sure there were loads of women who would have been like, he's a loser. He was just a monk for 3 years. Like, he has no job. Why would you date him? Like, I'm sure my wife was hearing that from so many people in her life. But I didn't want to be with a person who felt like that.
Right. And you might never know.
And
if you were already successful and you met her like that, if that was a big part of the appeal.
Yeah, totally. You never know. You never know. And I think people fall in love with your performance as opposed to you as a person. And I think that that's what becomes hard as a performer, as an actor, as a musician, as a podcaster, as a creator, whatever it is, that you're scared that someone falls in love with your performance and not who you are as a person, because your performance is a part of you, but it's not all of you. There's so much more of you.
Totally.
It's 1%, 10% of your life.
And I'm sure you feel that to
listen,
you have a whole set, it is you.
Everything's out. When you put something out there, it's an amped up version of you.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then you got to like be you on the couch too.
Yeah,
Like
Right.
you got to, Jay Shetty's got to go and not be a former monk.
Yeah.
Now love guru Jay Shetty on the couch.
Yeah.
You gotta
Right. Well, it's
have
like,
it all.
how annoying is it when someone's like, well, tell me a joke.
Right. Yeah. It's like, tell me some wisdom. Like,
right.
say something.
Give me something. Give me a pearl of life that's gonna help me through.
Yeah, and I don't want to be that at home. I don't do that too. I believe unsolicited advice is the worst advice. And so if I'm sitting with a group of friends and they're complaining about their relationships or challenges, I'll just stay quiet.
Right.
Because I'm not going to give advice unless I'm being asked for it, and unless I'm actually a part of that person's life. I stay out of it, because I don't think just jumping into everyone's life, is the way to spread wisdom.
Should we get to the question?
Yeah, let's do
Let's
the
do
email.
it.
All
We
right.
want everyone to go buy Jay Shetty's book. It is
Thank you.
called 8 Rules of Love. Go, go, go. It's out right now. How to find it, keep it, and let it
Go.
go. I'm looking at it right now. I love it. So,
You want me to read it?
yeah, go ahead.
Okay. All right. Hi, Jay and Jay. Big fan of you both and all your sage advice. I'm writing in with more of a thought starter and less of a question, but I'd love for you all to weigh in. I've been single for a couple of years now. I'm a 30-year-old woman and I've been on and off the dating apps for years. My complaint is this. Lately, I feel like I've been seeing a lot of mixed messaging on how to approach dating. I've been getting a lot of TikToks on my feed that are from women in relationships that treated dating like a job. They went on several first dates a week, curated their dating apps in a way to meet the right guy, etc. And it worked out for them, but only after putting in the work for months, if not years. On the other hand, people in relationships tend to encourage single people to not focus on dating so much, and they love that age-old, it will happen when you least expect it. I think single people are also are encouraged to focus on being the best version of themselves to attract the right person, which can be frustrating to hear at times. I'd like to quickly note that not all of my crowdsourcing is coming from TikTok, but I saw too many similar videos to ignore. It's funny because like once you watch one, then they all come to you. The same kind. For me, I've taken the treat dating like a full-time job approach for the last year or so, and I have nothing to show for it except some light trauma and a few good stories. So I will now be taking a break from the apps and transforming into the best version of myself. Anyway, would love to hear your thoughts. Thanks. About to be the betch version of myself.
I love that. Great question. So thoughtful, so reflective. The first thing I'd say is that there's nothing in life that just happens when you least expect it. Like, I think that cliche is really presenting an idyllic view of love. I think when couples say, when you know, and things like that, that's beautiful. But when you're learning and teaching, you have to realize there were far more intentional points. So I think people being highly intentional about finding love in a relationship, if that's important to them, is number one. And what I'd say about that is the apps are one place, and apps success-wise show the same level of results in studies as other ways. But just to add 3 other ways that I've seen couples find love in a great way, young couples, people of all ages. One is the old way, through people of the same value. Like telling people that you trust and you love to look for other people that they trust and love to connect you with. And often the people in our lives are scared to do that. They don't know enough about what you're looking for. They're not aware, but that still works. The second is places of similar value. Like you're more likely to find someone because you go to a place that you both love rather than go, I'm going to random bar tonight and hopefully I bump into the person of my dreams. And
what if I love the bar?
If you love the bar, then you already have a relationship. Okay. You're already taken.
I'm already done.
Yeah, you're already done. And then projects you love. Like I know so many people who've met because they were part of some sort of club or society or some sort of community or some sort of, I think that we just are not looking beyond, but you have to be intentional. Do not live in the thing of, it's just going to happen. If that happens for you, that's amazing. I love that for you. But if someone's seriously looking for a relationship, it has to be an intentional effort.
Well, I think the problem with intentional effort now is that we have, the first thought is the apps.
Yeah.
That's a very tangible thing that you could do right away.
Yeah.
And
you should.
It's the kind of thing where like if you say I want to be in a relationship and you're not on the apps, the person's like, well then you're not trying and I'm not interested in that. Right. You shouldn't complain.
Right. Yeah. You get accused of this and it's like and the apps become a very I can understand someone's on the apps and they go, I'm here.
Yeah.
It stinks. It's not working for me here. And the thing you said about, the friends, which I totally agree with. Is there a way you think going towards your friends, marketing yourself to your friends? What is the, because I do believe that is the key to all this for a lot of people and because friends always come back. No, I don't know anybody. And just like you even said it when you were talking, just they don't know what you're looking for, what you want. But do you think they even have to know that? Is there a way to energize your friends that it doesn't feel like you're hitting them up and bothering them? Yeah,
definitely. So I think one of the biggest things with friends is, and I have friends who constantly remind me and ask me all the time, like, Jay, do you know someone? But it's really useful knowing, okay, what level of seriousness is this? Because you don't want to be a bad friend to either friend. I don't want to introduce someone who's not serious to someone who is serious. So seriousness level, on the spectrum of 1 to 10, how serious are you about a long-term relationship, right? The second question, or that they need to understand is, what are the things that are priorities and what are preferences? Like, what are some things that are really important to you and what are some things that are like, I'm flexible on stuff like this. Priority could be like, I don't want to move, I want to live here. Or someone may say, I don't care where I live, I'm happy to move, I'm happy to meet someone long distance, right? You never know. So on that spectrum. And the third thing is keep reminding your friends. I keep getting reminded by friends in my life because I forget. I'm busy. I'm sure you're busy. We're all busy. Like you forget. And then someone says to me, hey Jay, just checking in, just letting you know that if you meet someone, let me know. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I just went to a wedding. I met someone great. I think he'd be awesome. Let me connect you. And so then keeping it fresh for that person helps that person help you out because they're not sitting there thinking about you the whole time.
Do you ever get someone who has a preference when they're telling you about something they're like, and they're like, you shouldn't have that preference.
Yeah,
or
definitely.
that's an unrealistic, thing, but it's like you said, you don't want to give someone unsolicited advice. I love setting people up. It's like one of my favorite things to do. But sometimes someone will say and I'm only interested in, I like guys who are over 6'2".
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, you're 5'1". I don't really know. Like that's fine, but
Yeah.
I don't. But you don't want to give someone unsolicited advice.
Yeah.
Just as an example.
Yeah,
do you do that?
Yeah, definitely. I think if they're open to it, I would help them understand like that's not going to make your relationship great. Like
Right.
I try and focus like what, and that's what I'm talking about with texting or whatever. It's like what actually makes a good relationship. It is chemistry. Chemistry is massively important. It is compatibility. It is connection, and it is character. But if you're only looking at physical height, which is such a specific attribute that you're like cutting out so many different options, when that's just because someone's tall is not going to make you have a good relationship in any way.
Yeah.
And so I think being honest and open about that. Also, people are very vague. When you ask people mostly what they want, they're like someone with a good sense of humor and someone who's kind. I hear that from anyone. It's the most basic thing to look for. It's like, well, wait a minute, like you need to be open to other people. They may make you laugh in a different way. They may be kind in a different way. So I think sometimes we're very stuck to our priorities and preferences.
Right.
And we definitely need an upgrade for those, for sure.
Also, everyone thinks they're kind, I think.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's...
And answering no to that.
Right. No, I'm not
so
kind.
I'm actually not kind.
Well,
so
it's the unrealistic thing is like, now that Michael B. Jordan announced on SNL that he's on Raya, like everyone's like, oh, maybe I need to be on Raya. So,
Holding out.
Yeah, everyone's holding out. I was like,
Right.
until that happens, I'm going to stay on,
And because you met your wife so young, and you've been with her for so long, have you ever struggled with anything of like, I've been with this one person for so long, I don't know if I dated enough, or I don't know if I've met enough people. Have you ever had that feeling?
I feel like I dated a ton of people from 14 to 21 before I became a monk. So like for those 7 years, I was just...
You went ham.
I was like all in and all out. Like it was great. It was amazing. Right. And so I feel like I got a lot of stuff out of my system. I feel like I got to live the life I would have wanted to live in my teens. And now I find that me and my wife spend a healthy amount of time apart. Okay. And I find that keeps things really fresh for us, at least. And I know that that's not possible for everyone or whatever it may be, but for us, that's been a big thing where I like miss her, and we want to rekindle the spark. We want to go on vacation again together, whatever it may be. Like I think spending a healthy amount of time apart is really great for us. And because of both of our work schedules, we end up spending 3 months a year apart, not in a row, but in different moments.
Well, if there's anything quarantine taught us, it's the importance of spending time apart.
That was fun too, yeah. Right? Yeah, it was fun too, but yeah.
3 months apart.
Yeah.
So just on different coasts,
That's so hot.
Yeah,
that's it.
She's in London. I'm in LA. I'm traveling. She's in LA. Like there's just
that's your dream,
right? Well, I'm thinking of like a guy listening to this, being like going to his girlfriend, being like, "I got an idea for this relationship." Okay,
Jay said.
He was like, "You got to go 3 months apart. 9."
I mean, unrealistic when you have kids.
Agreed. And we don't. And so with all those caveats, like, of course we don't have kids, etc. But for us, I found that really helpful. And I found that, this is why I believe so much in everyone having their own pursuit and having their own purpose. Like your person can't become your purpose.
Well, that's a big part of the 3 months apart. If you want to like break it down, right? Like that's, you guys have things going on. There's no thought of like, okay, what the hell, why haven't I heard from this person, or why are they not here with me now? There's no need. It is, would you say that there's like more like we're together because we want to be together? Yeah.
And also there's a sense of like, I'm excited for what's happening for you, and I miss you, but I'm like, I'm so excited to hear about all these stories you just collected and these experiences you had. And now we get to build a new experience together, rather than like, oh my God, we're just going to do the same thing together every week. And so even if you're not someone who has a life where you travel for work or whatever, I think that in an average month, you've got to make sure that you spend some time by yourself, time together, time with the same friends that you share, but time with your own friends too. I think you can't just be hiding in a room full of couples that are all friends together, or just spending time with each other. And I think when you have all these different dynamics, your relationship becomes healthier, because like, hey, I just did this with the guys. Hey, I just did this with the girls. Like there's just so much more energy that you bring to a relationship, rather than I'm depending on you to make me happy right now at every moment, every second of the day, which no one can keep up with.
Right. Can I ask a question for myself?
Please.
I got access to a former monk here. I need focus. I think that's a big problem for me. I was thinking like focus, like
on dating.
And dating, because I'm out there dating. You go on first date, you got someone that maybe you're on a second date with, like it's all going on at once. And then you go to the bathroom, you open up Twitter, Instagram. Oh, there's Raya. There's Hinge. There's Bumble. That enters the rotation, like that becomes, so I'm sure there's people out there that have like, and I'm speaking for myself, so I'm assuming there's people like me, where it's like there's just a lot of moving parts and you don't feel concentrated on one person to even explore.
There's always someone else.
There's always someone else. There's always something else going on. If I choose this, am I going to get 3 months down and realize I didn't give myself the opportunity to go down that road that maybe I should have gone down?
Or probably like, oh, you're 3 months in with someone who's probably perfectly great, but you're like, oh, maybe I could find someone who didn't say that annoying thing that one time.
Right. What, is there a meditation for this problem? Can you give me a mantra? No, you're right. Like you're 3 months in with someone, you go, I'm not missing anything, but this isn't what I imagined. This isn't the ghost I thought I was going to capture. How do you speak to that in a way? Is there something you can repeat to yourself? Is there tangible things you can do?
I mean, the thing to repeat to yourself, if it's all going okay but not better, it's like, it's only as good as I'm going to make it. Like it's only going to be as good as I make it. Like every relationship will only be as good as you want it to be. Literally, like if you want it to be great, if I'm saying if there's no toxic behavior, there's nothing abusive, like if you're having an okay relationship with someone, if you want to make that relationship great, you can do that.
So I hear that and I go, like, I'll give you like an example that's not specific, a little vague, but I'll give you an example. You go out on a couple dates with someone and then you get past, you go, all right, let's do the next thing. Yeah. Let's go, maybe now we're going to do the hang out on the couch or we're going to go spend a daytime together. That's kind of the normal progression. You go from like a drink state to another
Netflix
drink state. And then now you're in Netflix and chill zone.
Yep.
You're okay being in your sweats and your comfies together.
Love that.
And then you get away from that. You go, I'm not there. And I'm not as excited as I wanted to be after the comfy, cozy date. And then you go, do I push through where maybe I do feel that they're excited after comfy, cozy date and I'm not excited after comfy, cozies. So what, and then you go, man, I'm going to be, if I go to that next date, I'm responsible for that person's feelings a little bit more than I was the day before. Yeah. I'm pushing through. We get a lot of emails and I'm in this boat of like, just go again. You get a lot of people, just do it again. It'll happen when you find it. Yeah. No, you got to dig in. You got to, you don't know. 3 months in, you'll know. Yeah. How do you deal with that?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, great question. I think the first thing is you don't have to push any further than you don't want to. But at the same time, you've got to, really it's about digging deep in yourself, not even with the relationship, and going like, what excitement am I looking for? And by the way, sitting around watching Netflix together is a recipe for no excitement. Sure. There's no shared experience. You're watching a TV show together. There's nothing fascinating talking about it for more than 3 minutes. Yeah. And you didn't have a shared, like, unique, incredible experience. Like, I encourage couples that I work with or coach to go out and do an activity, an escape room, an experiment, a pottery class, an art class. Like, go out and do something
So many
together.
of those are in strip malls, though, which is kind of depressing.
But the point is, go out and do something that can build excitement. You're not going to have an excitement sitting around watching Netflix with someone. And I think that's one of the reasons why so many couples who are married or in long-term relationships lose the spark. But we have to talk about the science too, which is fascinating. And this really hit me. So when we experience chemistry or that spark, it's because we're feeling excitement and stress at the same time. So you have the excitement of, I like this person. The stress is, do they like me?
Yes.
The excitement is, I just got their number. The stress is, what do I text them?
Right.
The excitement is, oh my God, I think this is going to work out. The stress is, are they thinking the same thing? So when you're experiencing stress and excitement at the same time, it feels like a spark chemically in your brain. And you assign that to, we're in love, this is good. Now what happens is, as you spend more time with someone, comfy, cozy, you get more comfortable, which means your stress goes down. And when your stress goes down, you think, the spark's gone. We don't feel it anymore. Right. But actually, they made you feel safer. They made you feel more comfortable. And so we're so brainwashed into believing that life and love has to be like this exciting thing all the time that we're actually looking for more first dates. And that's what's going to happen. You're going to live your life only going to first dates or 2 dates because that's where you can have that spark. Whereas by date 7, you're not going to feel stress anymore because the person makes you feel happy.
Right. You know they're interested in you.
Yeah.
Right. That's funny. I got to like hold out, not on sex, but on head tickles.
Yes.
Well,
It's like, I'm going to get too comfy.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of spending time away from your wife or husband too. I
Yeah.
mean, I
Right.
talked about this when I went on my girls' trip.
Yeah.
And then my husband didn't answer my phone call for an hour, and I was like, "This is so hot." Or you, where are you? Like,
I'm back in the game.
right. It's like I'm a little stressed. This
Yeah.
is like kind of exciting.
And that's why you have to go and do activities. I really think couples doing activities where they both are not experts, trying something new out is a really
like
great
that.
way of bringing stress back into a relationship in a healthy way.
Right.
And so I remember, on our last vacation, me and my wife took a surf lesson. We're not surfers. We're born and raised in England. You don't go surfing in England. And we went on a surf lesson. It was like we were both falling over, we were both messing around. It's like when you're doing something new together, you like fall back in love again and again.
Right.
But if you're just washing your clothes, doing the laundry, washing the dishes, and you watch your partner do the same, and then you watch a show at night, it's going to be hard. Now, I'm not saying you have to not watch TV. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying once a week, once a month, don't just book a dinner date. Like everyone's date night is we go out for dinner and a movie. There's no shared experience. If you're going to go for dinner, go to somewhere random and try out food you've never had before. Right? Go and do something crazy. Go and make something at home that you've never made and play Hot Ones with your partner, right? Like whatever, like go do something fresh. Don't go and do Netflix and chill and expect to be in love.
Yeah, I
love
think that's
that.
great advice, especially for keeping things fresh the longer you're together, which is like I think the goal for most people, not everyone, but for most people to maintain a long-term stable relationship. But there's so many practical, amazing tips in your book, and I want everyone to go check it out. You can buy it, I assume, anywhere books are sold.
Yeah.
8 Rules of Love: How to Find It, Keep It, and Let It Go by Jay Shetty. This was such an amazing
Thank you.
episode. There's again, I've read the book. There's so many great practical tips where it's not like you really get into the specifics of how to get there, not just ideas, but the actual step-by-step guide for how to get there. So I love the book, and I know our audience is going to really enjoy it too.
Thank you so much. And thanks to you both. I love the way you dug in. This was so much fun. Like, I love where we went with this. And thank you so much for having me on. I'm so honored. I love what you guys do and keep crushing.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much for coming. This was great.
Thank you.
We'll be back on Wednesday. Bye.
The U Up podcast is produced by Sean Kilby, Maddie Paul, and Jorge Morales Pico. Editing by Jorge Morales Pico. Social media by Maddie Paul. Be sure to follow at u.up.podcast on Instagram and send us your emails to uup@betches.com.